Welcome to the July 21st Longmont Urban Renewal Authority Board meeting. Thank you all. Commissioner Christ called in sick and will not be able to join us tonight. So we will miss her, and we hope she feels better. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order and then take a roll call. We start with Commissioner over here.
Commissioner Halpopper.
Commissioner Parker.
Chair Popkin.
Vice Chair McGilbert.
Commissioner Hidalgo Ferring.
Commissioner Morrison.
Commissioner Jim Berthel.
Commissioner McCoy.
Commissioner Prieto.
Commissioner Luchon.
And staff at the table here.
Amy Bustamante, Board Secretary.
Katie Baltus, Redevelopment Manager.
Jen Newton, Executive Director of the Urban Renewal Authority.
Eugene May, General Counsel.
Teresa Moy, Chief Financial Officer.
You just here, Melissa?
For staff? Yes.
Sure.
Molly O'Donnell, Housing Director. Becky Doyle, City Utilities.
Thank you. I think that's everyone. We have 10 members present with Commissioner Christ absent. Next, we move on to item 3 on our agenda, public invited to be heard. Are there any public comments from anyone here today that are relevant to the Urban Renewal Authority meeting? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 4, approval of the minutes. We have the minutes from the May 5th, 2026 LURA meeting. I did receive a small edit from Commissioner Christ via email, so I'll just read that and then I'll open it up if anyone else had any other amendments to the minutes or motions related. Commissioner Christ had just identified an inconsistency between how he referred to the Director of Housing and Community Investment versus one of our planners, Jennifer Hewitt-Apperson, who was referred to by name in the intro versus Molly O'Donnell, who was not. So just for clarity up front, if we could add Molly O'Donnell under 7A, it would be continued affordable housing conversation - Molly O'Donnell, Director of Housing and Community Investment. That's her proposal.
So moved.
One second, I just want to see if we have any other amendment. Any other amendments? Yes, Commissioner Lichman.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, everybody. In the minutes, I'm on, let's see here, it's under, there's 2. Regular business, item 6, letter A. Commissioner Loachmain asked about the study that had been done prior to the letter. The question was about if there was an inadvertent request for us to sign on connected to a ballot measure passing. So just, for me and my perception, it missed what the question was. And then the second one was same, next page, number 6, letter B. Commissioner Loachmain asked if RTD changes will affect this. My question was about if the route changes that were happening in June that were publicized would affect that particular proposal. So someone could just add in the route changes. Otherwise, RTD changes is pretty well.
Yes, can you just remind me where the route changes that you're specifically under?
6B.
Under 6B, yeah, I'm on 6B, and then you're saying Commissioner Lichman asked RTD route changes. Got it. Yes, there are many changes related to RTD. Thank you for those amendments. The Vice Chair may go over it.
Yes, thanks. I would love my last name to be spelled correctly.
I would love for that too. Please
I
tell
make
me
a
more.
motion to approve Resolution LURA 2026-04. VRAY.
Ray, not as the Star Wars character, but Ray as in Ray Charles. Yes. It's an A, not an E. Thank you for that. Any other amendments to the minutes? Seeing none, any motions for the minutes?
So moved.
We have a motion from Commissioner McCoy to move the minutes with those 3 amendments, correct? Or with those 4 amendments?
Correct.
Thank you, staff. Did you capture the 4 that we're flagging there? I have those as well if we need to circle up after. We have a motion and any seconds?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Prieto, heard it first. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Just a clarification, Mr. Chair, and I understanding that it's not necessary, but my comfort level, because I was absent for that meeting, I'll be abstaining from both minutes. Understanding technically it's not necessary for the motion.
Sure. Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion to approve the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, Commissioner Marson. Thank you. That passes 9-0-1. Thank you. We will now move on to a report from our Executive Director of the Longmont Urban Renewal Authority. I'll pass that over to Jen Uten. Do you want to discuss 5A, letter of support for the Front Range passenger rail?
Good evening, everyone. I just gave my title, so I won't reintroduce myself, even though that is generally our practice. We had a lengthy discussion, as we just mentioned, about this item related to a letter of support for Front Range passenger rail. Because of the concerns that were raised and specifically what Commissioner Logan was pointing to, my recommendation is that we take this up at the next meeting. There is expected to be consideration and determination of whether or not the district will put a ballot question before the voters sometime in August, so that would go on the November ballot if they were to make that decision. And so based on that discussion, I just think that it's best to kind of hold off to the next meeting. And I do have a letter that is drafted that takes into account the other feedback that you have, so we certainly could take it up. And I didn't bring it because I thought that it probably was best to hold it over.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this update here? Commissioner Loachman?
No question, just I want to appreciate the responsiveness to that topic.
Any other questions? Seeing none, then you had item 5B, discussion of a special meeting date in August.
Yeah, so I will give maybe a little bit of context, and it's a little bit of framing also for some of the other items that are on the agenda this evening. So where we are with the First and Main Transit, with the urban renewal plan area, is that we have gone through the noticing and the blight study was conducted. We've done the plan impact report. We've shared that with the county and other taxing districts. We have some of those IGAs that have been negotiated. We have others that have not yet been finalized. We've been talking to all of those other entities, and we don't have everything organized for this meeting. We still have some conversations that are yet to happen. The county, I'm told, will take up the item soon. I think it's August 12th or 11th, whatever the Wednesday is when the Board of Education is planned to take up the conversation, the 12th. And then we're not certain exactly on the DDA, so there are a few other taxing entities that, and we don't yet have back the pass-through agreement with Northern. So because we need to have all of these IGAs sorted before we move forward with the consideration to take it to City Council for the consideration of the blight study and also the adoption of the plan, we anticipate that we will need another meeting. So I just wanted to give you kind of the timeline of where we are. The Planning Commission review will happen tomorrow, and that's for consideration of whether or not the plan is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. We felt like we could, because we'd had all of the conversations that we needed to, don't have every negotiation completed, but we've talked to all those other entities, and we felt comfortable moving forward with the Planning Commission review. And we will likely need a special meeting in August to approve those pending IGAs with those other taxing entities before consideration before City Council. And part of what is driving that is that we have a timeline for the transit center to start construction this fall to deliver on time. And so due to that, and given that there would be a debt consideration that would be part of that, so we have kind of some stacking timelines that we can move the consideration at City Council, and it will impact the timeline of when we are set to start construction. So it's a pretty tight construction window that we've identified to deliver the transit center. So we are really trying to stay with that, and so I apologize for that ask for a special meeting. I assume it would need to be the week after the school district meeting, so before the 25th, so that's the week of...
So you're thinking Tuesday the 18th? Is that what you're thinking? It's an off night from council?
I think it's an LHA meeting, so maybe we could go after the LHA meeting.
LHA
And
is
we
currently
wouldn't
at 5:30.
necessarily know what time it starts. I don't know, Molly, if you're able to give any insight.
I'm looking it up very quickly. I think they're generally slated to start at 5:30 these days.
Yep.
Yes, 5:30. The LHA meeting.
Would we aim for 7 or 7:30?
I don't know if that's reasonable given what the consideration is. That is 7 or 7:30. So if that works, it's a night where we know that there are several folks on the board that will be here for certain.
Yeah. There are 7 of us who are currently scheduled, but that, can I get a quick...
So that might not work for us.
Can I get a quick pulse check, particularly from those who don't moonlight as a council member as well?
What was the date again?
We're looking at Tuesday the 18th, probably 7 or 7:30 as a start time for that.
I'm good.
Commissioner Parker is a thumbs up. Commissioner McGovern, extremely enthusiastic thumbs up. Berthold? Does that...
I have a town hall that night, which I also have a town hall tonight, but if I need to be there, I can do that, because this is
Okay.
in the virtual option.
Correct.
We could make a virtual option work, if that would be helpful.
If that does occur, then.
We could do a hybrid.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for letting me know.
Okay. We'll plan on that then. And then if we aren't, for some reason, completed with all those negotiations, we'll let you know. So we'll go ahead and put it on the calendar. And Molly and I will work on if that's a 7:30, likely start or whatever.
Yes. Thank you all. Yeah, Commissioner Ledger.
If I may, Jen, just add to your report out, the Board of County Commissioners this morning at our business meeting approved an executive session on this topic tomorrow.
Okay.
So just from a timing standpoint, that might be helpful for folks.
I didn't see it yet on the website, so I didn't want to say for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you. Any other parts of your report? Executive Director. Thank you. We will then move on to regular business. Item 6A, the approval of the tax increment revenue agreement for the First and Main Urban Renewal Plan, City of Longmont. Commissioner McGilvray.
Yes, so as I've indicated with the LURA board previously, due to my employment in Front Range Community College, there's perceived bias. So I will be recusing myself from 6A and 6B. Text me later.
Thank you. I can't text you or will not grab some pizza on that. Yeah.
Great. So we've already.
Can we just wait till he leaves before we start?
I'll hurry.
Take your time, get your pizza.
This week, I was going to say that it was okay.
No.
So, yeah, but sure, we'd be happy to.
We'll keep this in order. Not that it would be under your work. Thank you. Let's continue.
Yeah, so you've seen this slide, and I think it, again, is relevant here because we're on that tax allocation, and IAGA is negotiated with each taxing entity step. So we're working on getting those moving forward. The First and Main Urban Renewal Plan area, you may have caught this in your information that was in the packet, and you might not have. When we were working through this development plan and getting the urban renewal plan together and the condition survey, we initially had this map. So essentially the area that is south of First, north of Boston, in this general area that is Kaufman, where it extends, would be the western border, and then essentially out to almost to Martin Street. It didn't include two parcels that are on some of these these agreements. And so I just wanted to highlight that. So when we took this to City Council, we hadn't yet made a determination that we wanted to include those two parcels. And so we have an updated condition survey that we did. So we had our consultant, Andy Arnold, who you met last meeting, go back out and do a condition survey for those two parcels. And we did add those to the map. So this IGA with the city of Longmont does not include those two parcels. So we'll have to come back and amend that. But we wanted to make sure that we had it moving forward. And as I mentioned, we hadn't yet made that determination that we wanted to include those two parcels. So the map for the other agreement looks differently. It includes two parcels, and I'll just give up for a second because I'm not exactly sure when we cut Boston through. So this right away right here is Ida. These two parcels have Ida addresses, so I'm not certain how we got there exactly. So it's a little bit confusing if you look at the actual mapping, but both of these areas is in service to this idea that we're working on a transit-oriented development in this area, and that projects, including the transit center and the Front Range Community College project, are in service to the renewal plan area, and those investments are they're the same either way. Those two parcels that are below have the IDA address are owned by the city, and so it doesn't impact the impact report because they're not on the tax roll. So just as a matter of interest, and we did send that information to the county, and so they got the original impact report, and then we sent the updated impact report as well, as we did to the other taxing entities.
Jen, is there a reason why, if you could remind us, why the boundary does not go up to, like, it's very narrowly drawn, right? And I'm just curious, like, why it doesn't go up to First and down to the river border.
Yeah, so I didn't include in this map, I don't have it in the slide deck, but I can pull it up. Essentially, this parcel right here in the corner, this one right here, these right here, and this one are all in the Downtown Development Authority, so there's an overlap. This parcel right here is a county enclave, and one of the things that we've talked to the county about is they're interested in seeing that annex, so that's something that we'll move forward with. And then this parcel was not anticipated to redevelop, so it was originally excluded, and then of course we kept it excluded because we were only adding the two parcels that were city owned and that didn't impact the impact report.
And then why not, from a remediation, like a overall redevelopment strategy, did it not go down to the Greenway, basically?
We didn't actually talk about going down to the Greenway, and again, it's essentially that the way that urban renewal law has changed over time is that the state law wants it to be the most narrowly drawn boundary that works for the development that you're working on. So essentially, that's and we had some conversations about where we originally, I think, some of these parcels actually were part of the condition survey, or at least they got noticed, and including the county enclave, and we didn't ultimately move forward with those because of the overlap.
What's up with the Tetris piece?
It's McCarthy's.
That's McCarthy's.
Is it? All right.
This
Or
is
it
the
animal hospital.
This is the animal.
Oh, that's the
hospital.
animal.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I'm sorry, up a little higher.
Oh, it's just the way that the property lines are drawn. Like, are you talking about those, like?
You're talking about right here?
Down.
No, like the chimney that's sticking up into the purple.
Oh, this is right away.
Yeah.
So I'm like, which puzzle piece? There's several. So this is the Kembark right away, and this is the Embree right away.
Yeah, I know that because when I was doing the noticing, I kept being like, why is there no address for these properties? And it's because it's right away. So when you're looking at it on this map, it's
Thank you.
yeah.
So So these are the projects that are, and this is a Front Range passenger rail rendering that they've done, and I think we've asked that we can use this for presentations just because it kind of gives a full look at this area, the transit hub and the Front Range campus, and then also kind of, while it is outside, the area, that connection for the Colorado Connector station, because this is overall a transit-oriented development. So just as a reminder of what these tax increment dollars are anticipated to go toward. So projects include the First Main Transit Center. I think everyone's seen various iterations of this slide over time. 5-story parking structure with about 700 parking spaces that will serve transit users, anticipated to also serve rail. Overall, the project cost, including land and the Kaufman Street extension, is $70 million. And then the Front Range Urban Innovation Campus. Where we are in this is the next phase of the project includes schematic design through construction drawings, as well as entitlements. And so this kind of gives you the sense of there's also a private development piece that will happen. And the urban renewal dollars, the tax increment dollars, are intended to go toward basically the public improvements in these projects. So the transit center, we've done a lot of modeling and exactly what that looks like in terms of the investment. We are farther away on the Front Range piece. But we'll be working through that and getting that much more dialed in the coming months. As I mentioned, the transit center is anticipated to start construction this fall. And so we took the tax increment IGA to City Council, asking for 100% of the tax increment contribution from the city, which is an average of about $200,000 a year. And the agreement that is in your packet is for that investment. So it's a resolution 2026-05 is the resolution of the Board of Commissioners of LURA approving the tax increment revenue agreement with the City of Longmont for the first and main urban renewal plan. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I know that I went over that quickly, but if you have specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. We have seen like the first and main impact report and a lot of the first and main discussion. So let's do our best to keep questions focused on this specific agreement. But if you do have clarifying questions to understand the context, we can entertain those briefly too. Commissioner Lichman and Commissioner Conco. No? Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So looking at the document, and I will focus on the resolution document in front of us.
No problem.
Instead of the first page, it's resolution. The second one is the agreement. And it looks like it is page 3 under impact report. So it's page 3, item number 3, impact report. It was just a curiosity. The last sentence in there says, "City hereby waives any other statutory requirements related to receipt of the impact report." And I was curious if that shouldn't read the authority versus the city. And it was just the way I interpreted.
You're looking at page 3 of the impact report?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I mean,
Of
we were
the
focusing on
agreement.
the agreement.
Oh, the
Oh,
agreement.
that's the
Thank you.
agreement.
2.9.
I apologize. I thought we were working on the tax increment revenue agreement.
No,
We are.
we are.
We are. I
We're
just thought you said
we thought he
impact.
was.
I thought you said
just a
impact
different-
report. Sorry.
Yeah,
It's
says
number
impact
3,
report.
impact report is the title in the agreement.
On page 3.
Oh.
So we provided the impact report to all of the taxing entities, and so this is just, and I can turn it over to legal counsel to answer that question, but I think it is included in all of the agreements. That.
But wouldn't it be the party of the agreement in each one of the different documents?
Correct, and the city is the party of
Right, so
of
this agreement is with the city, so the city is waiving the
Okay.
the requirements of receiving the impact report, though
I'm looking
they
at the
did,
attorney.
although they did receive it.
Fair enough.
Commissioner Eugene May, General Counsel, it is LURA's obligation to provide the taxing entity with the impact report. And so it is the taxing entity here, the city, that is waiving any further statutory requirements. Saying, yes, indeed, we received the impact report and we're satisfied with that as checking the box under the statute.
Okay, thank you.
And I just will note that this impact report that's referenced in this document is from April, and that is because of the difference of the two different impact reports, because we did one that was updated for those other agreements. And so when we amend this, we would update it with the new information, the new.
Other questions?
Motion?
Seeing no other questions, yeah, is there a motion on, where did the item go?
I'll move resolution LURA 2026-05.
Second.
Thank you. We have a second from McCoy, correct? Yes. Thank you. We have a motion to approve the resolution. Where did that go? There we go. A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Longmont Urban Renewal Authority approving the tax increment revenue agreement with the City of Longmont, the First Domain Urban Renewal Plan area. That was motioned by Commissioner Hidalgo Ferring and seconded by Commissioner McCoy. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes unanimously with Vice Chairman Gilbray recused. Thank you. We will now move on to item 6B, approval of the tax increment revenue agreement for First Domain Urban Renewal Plan with the St. Vrain Left-Hand Conservancy District.
Thank you. So this resolution is the intergovernmental cooperation agreement with St. Vrain and Left-Hand Water Conservancy District, also for First and Main. So when we put together the impact report, we provided that information to the taxing district, and we had a conversation with them 2 months ago, and then they just approved an agreement on July 13th that's included in your packet, and it does set a cap for the total amount that would be collected over the 25 years at basically the modeled amount that's included within this report. So the modeling for the impact report is based on the best information that we had at the time. It is a point in time related to what is the information that we knew. So I try not to say mixed use wrap, the development that would include housing and commercial that would go around the transit center, and then also the private component of the Front Range Community College, that overall effort for that development. And then also there's additional housing that is on, and I can go back to the map, the parcel that is on the furthest eastern parcel that's included within the district. So they're modeled at not coming online all at the same time, but essentially the tax increment that is created by those developments is our best information that we had at the time of what we think that project, what the exact square footage would be, exactly kind of when it might come online, and exactly how much it might cost to have that assessed value essentially. So it's a modeled number, and this is what we sent to them, what we thought we would collect over the whole period of the 25-year clock. So both this agreement and the other agreement that's in your packet caps at basically the model number.
So
and
if
with
more
that,
was generated, then they would keep that.
they would keep it,
Yes.
and we would remit it back. And I think that, other than that, I think that the information is the same as it is for the area that includes both of the IDA parcels, just for clarity in terms of what this agreement covers. And I'm open to any questions you have.
Thank you. Just one process question for me. Do we need to have two different votes here for a resolution on the tax increment revenue agreement and then the intergovernmental cooperation agreement?
It is the same
There.
agreement, there's just, I think that this agreement, because I think the way that it was drafted is calling it a cooperation agreement as the, but it's an IGA.
Are we treating those as two separate things, or if we approve the resolution, does that carry over to the cooperation agreement?
Both within one.
Both within one?
Yeah.
Is that clear, folks?
Yes.
Great. Any questions on this resolution with Left Hand Conservancy? Seeing none, any motions on this item?
So moved.
A motion from Commissioner Kalkofer, seconded by McCoy. Commissioner McCoy, thank you. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion passes again, 9-0 with Vice Chair McGilvray out.
And he can come in.
He can come back in, yes. Would you like to welcome him back?
Nice to bring him back in.
Thank you very much.
Did he make a run for it?
Yes, I just here for the pizza. I'm gonna get this.
Oh, no.
I'm ready to show I can answer dinner. At least I can do it in August. Excellent.
Oh, is he not? Did he?
Let me text him too.
No, I've got all the time.
Like, really getting to this full year.
Nearby.
Not nearby, I just sent him a
Not
text.
nearby, but, okay.
He is. I am getting 3 dots. He's alive.
Oh, so he's.
He said okay. He said okay, I'll finish my drink at Longmont supply.
Yeah. Don't go far, don't go far. He's expecting
If anyone needs a quick bathroom break or food break, go for it. Then we'll move on to item 6C.
There he comes. Welcome back.
Thanks. Just to catch you up, we had the first 2 items under regular business, 6A and 6B, both passed 9-0 with you abstaining, with you refused. Okay. Welcome back. I'll pass it back over to Jen.
Yeah. So this intergovernmental agreement is also with St. Clair Left Hand Conservancy District. It's for the Twin Peaks URA plan TIF area number 2. So that this intergovernmental, it's also called the cooperation agreement, was approved by the district on July 13th as well. So this resolution would approve LURA's participation in the agreement. It also would pledge incremental revenue from the district for 25 years, and it also includes a modeled cap. Essentially, the district continues to receive revenue for the base valuation, and then they would, if there was collection that was over that cap of $627,000 and change, if we reach that, then we would remit it back to the district as well. And I did just include a couple of slides, just because it's been a little bit since we talked about it. So this area where the Heinz development is an area of change, and so has a mix of uses there. It is the Nelson and Hoover area has had some site challenges and includes kind of access issues and other kind of calls for service areas, and this development is under construction now, and so that is moving forward. I didn't include it. I thought I did, but I didn't include. There's I'm going to get up one more time. So this area includes both this parcel and then the parcel that's in the other side of Hobby Lobby. So the the modeled information does include both of those parcels moving forward, some, with development that then would generate increment. And so it is the best modeled information at that point in time that we had, also related to this agreement. So they're in for 100%, but also the cap. And so this is Resolution 2026-07, which is, and I'm not sure where the two came from, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners for the tax increment revenue agreement with St. Marie Left-Hand Conservancy District for the Twin Peaks Mall Urban Renewal Plan Tax Increment Financing Area Number 2.
Thank you, Executive Director Gooden. Are there any questions on this agenda?
I don't know if this is an appropriate question for now, but something that came up today is connectivity to the Greenway. With these dollars, could we ever see any continuation of our Greenway connectivity for all of this development, or is this not the proper place to ask that question?
So in general, what would happen is in both of these areas, because there's two areas that are tax increment, the way that this one is set up, that those dollars could go and be used in that entire urban renewal area. So it's kind of an amoeba-looking area that is around the Twin Peaks Mall redevelopment site, and then these two parcels that I just mentioned, the one that's the former Longmont site, and then the one that's on the east of Hobby Lobby. So there, we can certainly look in the future if there is adjacent property that could be, that would be a public amenity, but we would want to review that with legal counsel to make sure that we were following the renewal law.
And so in that case, could adjacent property include the county fairgrounds?
I think, again, we would need to look at what that specifically, what their
Definitions of
the
adjacency.
definitions of where those dollars can be used. But I think, if there's an adjacent sidewalk, for example, that might meet the definition. So we would review that with council at the time.
Thank you. There's also like the Gulch Trail that's just south of that, I think, that goes over. Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Conco. For other questions on this item? I have one then. How common is it for TIF agreements to be approved after a project starts construction? From your
It does
experiences?
happen.
Yeah.
And I think that this one is not as large a dollar figure as some of the other agreements, and I know that the project for Hines in particular was interested in having every dollar that could go to this project, because the modeled number that we have, they aren't certain that they will. We have this cap of $15 million. They aren't certain based on the modeling that they would reach it. So all of these taxing agreements, increment agreements, are dollars that can be, meet that agreement that we have with them.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions from the board, are there any motions on the item?
So moved.
A motion from Commissioner Pareto, a second from Commissioner Kalkofer. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries 10-0. Thank you.
And I will just add, to answer your question, which I didn't say before, is that we, as we're doing this for the new urban renewal that we have now, we're getting all of these agreements done before the plan is adopted. That's not what happened in the last case, and so just acknowledging that that there was a change in the law, and so we're catching up with that, and that but moving forward, these agreements would be ideally approved and inked and everything before the urban renewal plan is considered by.
Thank you.
apologize that I didn't also add that.
Appreciate that. Great. Seeing that concludes our items on regular business, we'll move to item number 7. We do not have any special reports or presentations tonight. Figured I'd give you a meeting off on that one. We've had some robust discussion in the past. I do want to offer 2 FYIs of potential topics that could come up and gauge the board's interest here. We don't have any formal presentation on this, but I wanted to basically offer this and just get a general sense of the board's interest. So the first one is Executive Director Uten, myself, and I guess City Manager Dominguez were approached by the development team to the parcel to the east of that Walmart Hobby Lobby area. They're looking at market rate for sale townhomes on that property. That is just south of, like, parallel to or adjacent to Nelson Road there. So they were interested in having a conversation with this board about our interest in tax increment financing for that project. And I just wanted to get a sense if that would be welcome from the board for discussion and more of them presenting kind of what they're thinking of doing and taking questions. So I wanted to largely tee that up as just a topic. We said we would, when we met with them, just to understand what they were proposing more, we said we would take it to the board and get your thoughts on whether you want to have a deeper conversation on that.
Can we see it now?
Yeah, can we just throw up can we throw up maybe Google Earth or something there just to show where?
This thing?
Is it the parcel between the backside of Hobby Lobby and the public storage?
Is there like a house there?
It's east of that house, so it's north of, is it the Suites?
Right
or is
along,
it
right along the
Zinnia?
outside.
Which one?
Directly adjacent. Let's see.
Zinnia is back to the
They're-
village.
I think yes, it does.
And so
To
Suites
Sam's
is,
Club.
yeah, so Suite, it would be north of the Suites. You know that. But we'll pull up the map there so you can
Is
see.
it the full parcel there? Or
It's currently a vacant lot.
Yeah, no, I see, yeah. Is it, just how much of the parcel do they
Can we go to like the satellite view for this?
Yep.
There we go. So for the board's understanding, if we just zoom in there a little bit. Zoom a little bit more. It's that parcel, including
It's that full parcel?
Yeah, I believe so, including the parcel that the one building that's on there. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's this.
Yep.
Does that include to the south of Dry Creek or?
It does not.
It's
Everything
not
north of
even
Dry
north
Creek.
of
Everything
Dry
north of Dry
Creek.
Creek. Yep.
Cool, thanks.
So that's the parcel that they were, again, the current, what we were informed of is that they were looking at for sale townhomes at kind of a market rate level for that.
If it's appropriate, who's the property owner?
Just trying to think
If it's not appropriate.
Sure. I don't think that should carry in our decision making.
No, I'm
so
just, yeah, I'm curious.
What was the comment?
what,
just who
who
was
the
the
developer
developer
is. I don't think that should carry in our decision making right now as to whether we're interested in that. In understanding more.
Was there,
Yeah.
this came up before, wasn't there discussion prior, Sean? Maybe, do you remember about for sale? I thought I was expecting this to come to us anyway, because we had heard, it might have been with the last council. It's like, this is not
I
new.
can't quite
Might have been
remember
rude.
that anything was talked about, but maybe it was.
Maybe they loosely discussed it conceptually, but
Maybe they're just, Mr.
Yeah.
Chanel maybe gave
Molly, do you
kind of a heads up about
Not specifically as it regards to tip sharing.
tip sharing? Okay, okay.
Commissioner Lichman?
Just to clarify, what I thought I heard you ask
Yeah.
was a question about if this board would like to have that group come and
Mhm.
present, and we'd be able to ask them questions about
Correctly.
Exactly. This would not be bringing necessarily, they are interested in tax increment financing if the board is interested, which is why it's relevant for this. But they're also interested in just presenting what their concept is and getting feedback from the board. So this is truly just a request to see if we have interest in entertaining that, so that we don't waste your time or theirs. Yep. Commissioner Kalkofer?
Thank you. So real estate is not really my forte, so hopefully somebody can explain. So I know what market rate for single family is, 'cause we have a lot of that, but we don't have too much market rate townhouses here. So what would the price range kind of look like if you say market rate townhouses? Like what's the price point?
That would be a
the question for them.
That would be a great
Like, we
question
get
for
to
the
ask
development
those
team.
type of questions.
Does
Market.
it,
market rate looks different per development.
Does it tend to be lower than the average home price? And it does?
Less than a single family,
Okay.
conceptually.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, you know, as an attached product, there's also the, you know, HOA fees or whatever those kind of components would be. So,
Commissioner Prieto?
Did they approach us asking about TIF, or was TIF suggested or mentioned on behalf of the city?
They approached us asking for TIF and a few other financial mechanisms, some which we're in control of, some like TIF, which is relevant to LURA, and some that are more relevant to the city more broadly. So they were trying to understand what options they had, and they asked specifically about taxing financing.
Does staff have a
Does staff have?
like an input or any comments regarding like if this is like typical and or like a space where we would be interested in developing, or like, so when I think about TIF, I think about like and then LURA, right? Like really filling in some of these spaces, but also there being like large community benefit. And so in kind of looking at this space, does staff have a recommendation as to whether to entertain that conversation based off of like, you know, all of the different aspects you guys look at when considering TIF?
So I think one of the things that we've heard from this board is there's an interest for affordable, but there's also an interest for purchase housing. So I think that was part of the question in driving the, you know, asking the question about a presentation. And one thing that I will note is that that in two of these agreements that are related to this area in particular, there is a cap for the tax increment financing, and it's from those taxing districts. So from the school district, there's a it's a little more than $15 million. I don't have the number right off the top of my head. $15 million and change for the whole 25 years, and it's for both parcels. And the one that was just approved tonight has a cap as well. And so the development agreement that's for Hines is specific to saying that they are eligible for the tax increment that their project creates. And similarly, the project that potentially is on this side that would use that would be able to probably access, depending on what this agreement is, if it were to come forward, the increment that's generated from that project to be reinvested in the public improvements, for example. And there is an overall cap for some of those taxing districts. So it's not, it was a modeled amount, and again, it's a point in time, and it's based on the best information we have at the time.
Part of the reason, just to add a little more context to that, that I was pulled into that meeting just as a kind of a feeler, was because we'd heard feedback from the board on the interest in using TIF ideally for affordability and attainability, but also for sale. And so this splits the difference. And so we genuinely wanted to ask the board the interest in just, again, that would not commit us to any resources or any agreement. This would just be if we want to learn more about this and want to do it in this kind of a setting.
And it's for sale.
What they have currently shared with us is that this is a for sale market rate townhome product.
I am interested. Putting on a development hat, is there enough entry? Because I see it's pretty small on the Nelson side. Would there be enough emergency entrances and entrances?
It's a fully designed project, so
They would connect to Corte Place and to Nelson most likely.
Perfect.
Vice Chairman Gilbert?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah, thanks. I guess the question, to reframe it, is what is the appetite for LURA to explore TIF to activate blight for sale market rate housing? The first question I would ask myself is what is the gap? And because we don't want to fund something that would have already penciled, that's at the core of what we do is like is address blight where there is a financial gap that closes that to make it happen. So that would be one of the first things I would be asking possible developers. If we didn't ask that question, I would want that question asked before they come present before us. And then it goes down to prioritizing what's most important, because we can't be everything to everybody as a LURA board, as we want to be. But as we all know, we have scarcity is a real thing. So that's my thoughts. Is I think we all agree we need for sale market rate housing in Longmont, but only if it addresses blight and really we are crystal clear of how we're addressing that gap, that financial gap.
Yeah, and to be clear, we don't. I can't answer. We can't answer that question on the gap. That'd be a great question to ask the development team if we wanted to hear from them. And as we talked about in our housing conversation, I guess last meeting, there is also value in market rate products being built in a TIF area from an overall revenue collection standpoint in the overall district. Commissioner McCoy.
Well, I was going to agree with Commissioner McGillifray in the sense that do we want to pursue every one just because we have TIF right there? Do we in the Heinz, projects? Do we really need to do that? I wonder if there's a certain point where I would think that all entities, city, school district, county, really have higher priorities, like out towards the sugar mill that might be there. And I wonder about the sort of message we send to somebody when they do come in to explain it. I mean, it's not that I don't want the information, to Commissioner Kokoffer's point of view. It's the fact that I don't want to have them have any misconceptions that we would, be seriously, entertaining this if we found it just to be an average project.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner Marson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm interested, but in the sense of this meeting could have been an email kind of interested, and I don't say that dismissively. I think for me the core question is, to Vice Chair McGillivray's point, what do you need for it to pencil? And I think that's something we can find out without having them come in and present. And if it's already penciling and they're coming to us because they're looking for a tax break, every developer if every developer in the city who wanted to build something came to us and asked for TIF and we entertained every one, we'd be meeting a lot more, and I love seeing your face, Chris. So I would like to know, the specifics of why they are, what they're looking for and why, in an email kind of outreach that's sent out to the entire board before I could say whether or not I'd be willing to even entertain them. And yes, completely understand you on the for sale side.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at this site and I'm like, man, do we really need? And that's why I honestly asked about the developers. I understand it doesn't really matter who the developer is, but the question for me is, I know that parcel's been talked about for a long time in a lot of different environments. At one time there was, Hope looked at it at one time. There's a lot of different things that have gone on it.
True.
So I'm curious if that's, what their plan is overall there, and if it's best possible use. And I'm skeptical that TIF is the answer on every project. So.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Would it be appropriate if we asked them to provide back in napkin math, how many units would we be proposing with and without TIF, so we can see, what the pricing might look like for these for sale units?
I think we can ask them for anything. It's a question of what they want to provide at this time.
Because I'd like to see the math of with and without TIF. What would it, how many units and how much would it cost with TIF and without?
Commissioner Longmont.
If I may just share from other LURA experience, it's common to have somebody come in and it's a really brief presentation. I hear what you're saying, Commissioner Marcy, and I appreciate you know one of the meetings myself. And the benefit for us to have them come in and present is that I can hear the questions that you were asking.
Yeah.
And for me, it's about 4. And so I think collectively there could be some benefit to the conversation.
So let me see if I can capture the discussion from what I've heard. So I'm hearing we would really want to know and particularly understand what's the gap, what's the blight issue they're addressing, and then what and why they're proposing what they are with the options with or without TIF. Perhaps I would suggest, and I'm hearing maybe a lukewarm interest in the presentation. Let me suggest this and see if there's agreement. We provide those questions in advance to them so they can come prepared and use our time as effectively as possible. And say, look, we're open to a 10-minute presentation from your team and then a little bit of discussion. Let's not stretch beyond 25, 30 minutes for this agenda item. But it would also be a good test case for us to understand a little bit more what's being proposed with this Urban Renewal Authority and with someone really coming to us to say, here's what we're trying to do.
I would be specifically interested in their answer to the pencil question and to what they see as blight. Because if we're talking, if every vacant lot in the city is going to be consideration for blight, that's it.
I believe they have a blight study already done.
Well, it's part of this overall area where you approved the plan.
Yes.
There was a condition survey that was when you approved when city council approved it in November. So there was a blight study that we can certainly bring back and
can we just include that in the packet
we can
again?
include it in the packet. And I'm sure that we can persuade them to come in and answer those questions and potentially in writing, and certainly I'm sure they would be excited to be here for attending the presentation.
Commissioner Prieto?
Just to, and like, I was kind of like skeptic in the beginning, but like as we think about some of the housing needs here in Longmont and what the developers are not providing, right, for specific reasons, I'm more open to seeing what they have to say. I think it helps us understand as a board, just to understand like what does that market look like, what are those barriers, what tools does the city or LURA or whoever need to put in to make sure that we have diverse housing. And I know that's something we identified, and then when we talk about like infill, right, this would definitely fill in that property, and so I'm up for it.
Commissioner Buckley?
Thank you, Chair. Final question, and maybe Molly has the answer to this. Is there plans for the site that's below Dry Creek as well?
That's that parcel between Dry Creek and the Suites is owned jointly by LHA and the city, and we do have that slated for future affordable housing development. But it's a challenging site. We gotta think about that the best.
Some grading
issues. There's some it's historic fill, and then we want to make sure that we get the unit mix or the type of housing right for that area. Mm-hmm. So it's basically land banked is what I would say.
But housing at some point.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay.
And just thinking about it, like just a big fat idea out there. When we're talking about a developer who's going to be building on that space right next to it, what type of incentives or additional housing could they provide as a result of TIF? And maybe partnering with the city or LHA on providing housing or additional units there. Just things to think about.
Yeah. Thank you. Good questions. I'm going to suggest then we kind of tell them, like, you got about half an hour to present and take questions. Use your time how you see fit. We'll send them the questions that the board has just tossed out here. They're also on recording, and I'll just remind, like, the opportunity here to have them present to us is an opportunity for us to also send a market signal of what we are interested in hearing in the future. So think about your questions in advance of that. We'll do our best to get you the condition survey and other information in advance.
And I'll go ahead and reach out to them.
Yeah, and let them know if they can provide any context in advance, site plan or whatever they have that they're willing to share with the board at that time, recognizing that is public information. But I think it'll help us come more prepared to that conversation. Great. Thank you. That was item number one I wanted to discuss. The second is another informational presentation request. So we had a request from a few folks who have been working as part of the broader St. Vrain River District, which can we pull up the map as well? It's basically the area west of First and Main. So I think between like Sunset and South Pratt, or Left Hand Brewery and the surrounding areas there. where we've been doing a lot of the river corridor reconstruction. So the request was from people who have been involved with, some property owners who have been involved with the area-wide planning effort for that. And there was an area-wide plan completed last fall that both Vice Chair McGilvray and I were part of in a different capacity. That's funded by the US EPA for a brownfields area-wide plan to kind of look at the overall master planning for that area. That plan has not been presented to this group yet, and so I think there was an interest in introducing what that work was and getting this group's feedback on that, introducing that broader area. I don't think there was a property-specific TIF request coming in at that moment. Do you recall from the email?
It's not necessarily a property specific request, but I think it, although I think there is one. I will note that there was previously a condition survey that was conducted as part of that separate effort that was not a city or urban renewal led effort, and so there is some background information as well related to the conditions, although if there were to be an urban renewal plan that were put in place here, obviously that condition survey would need to be updated.
Thank you.
Is this over by Boston? Is that?
Exactly. Yeah. So basically, it's. Let me see if I can.
Let me see if I've got a map.
So that it's basically the area from Sunset going down to Boston.
Is it following the creek?
Includes the creek. Actually, it's broader than this. So it actually goes.
Is there a setback there that makes it almost kind of impossible?
There is a setback involved, but it doesn't.
150-foot setback along the river corridor.
Yeah, that
So,
stretch. We can show a map of what that would
Yeah.
stretch into. It does not impact all of the properties there at all.
No.
It's like the third time.
We'd actually be going a little bit further west, even.
So it
yeah.
picks up this property right here.
Yep.
Includes all of Isaac Walton,
Mhm.
and then goes
All the way down to South Pratt.
Yep, to South Pratt, and then follows the Boston.
So basically,
So it picks up
everything in
Price.
the screen right now, except the areas south of Boston, west of the creek. So again, the request was just to present on kind of the overall potential of the district and the area-wide planning effort that has gone in. We could share the area-wide plan with everyone in advance, so you could have context coming into this as well. They wanted to come to us specifically to talk about the redevelopment that's kind of necessary for that whole part of the corridor.
If you go from Sunset going west, isn't that Rivertown area there?
Yeah, wasn't there a
That's like
project we
500.
approved?
Yeah,
That's
that's
like
this.
500
It's not
units?
this parcel, but it includes like right
Yeah.
here. It goes.
Try to make that the busiest spot in town. Jeez.
There's no specific development plan yet for the other areas that we're talking about. The area-wide planning effort would show kind of how to make that corridor connect and work together from an economic standpoint. Again, the area would basically be this area plus all of this area coming down into here, going over to South Pratt.
And it does also pick up this piece on the other side of Price.
I think the eventual request, correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, the eventual request would be to create an urban renewal area for parts or all of that.
Yeah, I think that is the interest, and that's why there's a condition survey.
Correct.
That was done as part of this, and I also recognize that that we have a couple of these urban renewal plan areas that we've been moving forward. We know that there's one for the sugar mill, so I just wanted to highlight that this would be in addition to that.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll note is this does align with some of council's discussions from city council discussions to kind of think about the overall redevelopment efforts from the fairgrounds all the way over to the sugar mill. If you think about that stretch, this area rolls right into First and Main, which then connects to the east to the sugar mill area. So just to think about the contiguity there. Yeah, Commissioner Dr.
So one point I was going to bring up is looking at staff capacity, looking at, we have other priorities, First and Main Station, Sugar Mill, those areas. The other piece is we are now at 10 years since our Envision Longmont has been updated. I really don't feel comfortable moving forward on an urban renewal in this area without extensive community engagement, impact, especially with the work done along the river corridor as far as preservation, flood mitigation, considering I lived a block away from all that. I'm still in trauma. I'm like, so I feel like before this board starts looking to take that on, I think there are things that we need to be doing at the community level and at the city council level first. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Just, will you clarify what the ask is? Because I heard you talking about a district, and when I heard Jen, I think, suggest, yes, my question was about, is this actually a presentation about a URA or a URA plan? What was the actual ask?
So I will,
Was it just
maybe I'll just give, and it is before my time, so I don't know all of how these things came together, but there's this plan that was done as part of the EPA, so an area-wide plan that kind of is a look forward of what could happen, so kind of a visioning document that is related to that. And as part of that work, they did a condition survey, and I think that there is an idea that there would eventually be an urban renewal area that would allow this area to use tax increment financing to do that development. So I think it's maybe a presentation on the work that happened and also potentially that ask related to an urban renewal plan area. So both.
And I will say, we mentioned Envision Longmont, and that was at the core of this effort, but it is 10 years old. So
we need to
that is one question. Does Envision Longmont, is it still relevant today? And do we want to look at that? I know we're kind of going off on a tangent there. When we think about community engagement, because I've been involved with a few of these kind of vision discussions over the years, and this has been driven by the property owners in this area coming together to envision on what could be. So I think there's a capacity concern for me, but it's absolutely something that I think LURA should at least hear a presentation or an update of the context of what has gone into the work up to this point. But I agree that, going back to being everything to everybody, we certainly have our hands full, and this is a LURA that's been more active than ever before in Longmont, and there is that capacity issue.
Yeah, Commissioner Marcy.
I'll just be frank, I think I appreciate the idea, certainly, and the ambition behind the notion. I don't think we're ready at this point. I think we've got between First and Main and then the potential sugar mill conversation down the road, that's going to take a tremendous amount of work. I would rather hold before we even start looking at brownfield development or otherwise until we're further along, especially on sugar mill. I think we're going to have some more conversations on that in the future.
Thank you. Commissioner Prieto.
So I would be interested in kind of like just seeing the vision, because we're starting to really develop that downtown First and Main area, and it's helpful to know like what's the vision over here, so we can do it right over here.
Sure.
Right.
To look at the synergy.
It really helps us just to look at that synergy of like how is this going to connect in the future, and so. As we're starting to develop, with the transportation station, FRCC, and then whatever potential developments come thereafter, then we'll be able to connect just based off of the information we received in that visioning session, or just like what they're talking about. I think that would be very helpful just from a commissioner perspective and a council perspective, in the planning and all that fun stuff. I would also be interested to hear from staff. Specifically Molly, how can we really leverage these to work together to maybe land bank, to get our hands on some land to do another True North, type of project, like how do we really work if these are like private property owners, like how do we really leverage all these tools to come together to work in that way, if we can, right? It could be totally illegal, I don't know. But maybe we change the law. I'm just playing. But I'm interested because then, you know, on the surface it's like, oh, you know, don't feel comfortable, or like, we should probably do this. But then if you like throw in like, well, this could be an opportunity for another True North or something else like that, I think my interest goes up a little bit more so.
Yeah.
But not knowing kind of like what's under the iceberg that's exposed, you know?
Sure.
I think that would be helpful as well.
Thank you.
So-
Commissioner Cockford.
No, please. No, please. No.
Commissioner Cockford.
So I drive this area all the time. It doesn't look pretty, but it to me it doesn't have the same issues that the Sugar Mill area has, where it comes to public safety issues. But I was on the fence. You kind of pushed me one way. It would be interesting without deprioritizing all of the other stuff that's happening at the Sugar Mill, because I want us to make sure that we're focusing our attention there. You know, can we have a rainy day project where we're slowly just getting a vision? I think that would be appropriate because it is, you know, kind of center in our town, and it could be a great spot. But we have bigger problems that I think we need to solve right now at the Sugar Mill. But it would be interesting to see what the vision is for the property owners.
Jen, did you want to ask?
So what I was going to offer is maybe what we could do is in the next packet, we could send out these documents. And then you could take the temperature, and if you wanted to have a presentation, then we could move forward with the presentation. I know that they would be interested. But you know, there's a lot of documentation that's easy to attach.
That doesn't involve staff work at all.
And then you would be able to see that. Some folks have seen it, and not everybody has, so that would, you know, everybody would then be able to at least have an understanding of the work that's happened from that line.
Yeah, I'll offer two other comments and then take a pulse check. We don't have to vote on this, but I can just get a pulse and figure out how we want to approach this. I think that's a good suggestion. The first comment I wanted to offer is how we think about brownfield cleanup funding for the Sugar Mill, for Broader First and Main, for this area. When we think about that, there can be different ways to build those muscles. Whether you're investing in a site that is as complicated as the Sugar Mill, which is probably the creme de la creme here, or sites that need some work to kind of realize their full potential. And there's different degrees of blight, as we're seeing with some of these condition surveys that we've seen around town already, between the Twin Peaks area and the former Walmart site, and the First and Main area, and the Front Range Community College site. So how that funding could build up, or especially if you're getting state or federal funding, to then be able to apply in different areas. It doesn't have to just be in this one designated area like we have to carve out for TIF. So understanding kind of that could be relevant, and then that inherently leads into a couple things. One, really appreciate the comments on priority and staff capacity. I share those as well. There is a potential sequencing for us to start to think about. First and Main's obviously moving the fastest of all of this. If or when the Sugar Mill negotiations pan out, there's going to be probably years of cleanup and remediation work before any redevelopment happens there. Correct me if you disagree, Katie or Jen, but likely years of remediation work, in which case, once we iron out some of the initial negotiations on the Sugar Mill site, is there an appetite for us to start to activate this area while we're working on the cleanup to activate the Sugar Mill, and then will we have a better sense of what types of reuses in the Sugar Mill area might make the most sense? So I don't have the answers for that. I don't think we have to discuss what the right thing is at this moment, but for us to think about going forward is the sequencing of after First and Main is largely kind of anchored, and presuming we're able to make progress on the Sugar Mill negotiations and site remediation there, then what's happening when, what uses do we want where, becomes a very different conversation. So I just wanted to offer that perspective into this. Was there a comment or question there?
Aren't there also environmental issues with some of these parcels?
Yeah, one or two are on a former landfill.
Yeah. Or is it landfill landfill, or I thought there was something else. I thought there was
One
All of Erie's on a landfill.
There was like explosives. Or
At least
something.
one of the areas is like a former landfill, I think, parts of that. Are there what, explosives?
Isn't there something?
I haven't heard that.
No? Okay.
No, I didn't see that in the area-wide plan either. Yeah, Commissioner Lichman?
I appreciate y'all bringing the presentation request to this group. To me, it could be a yes, and on a calendar, it's very reasonable to say, like, we won't be able to calendar you for 3 to 6 months.
Sure.
Because we have other items that are happening in timeline. So for me, that's my takeaway from the conversation is that there's some interest, but it's not an immediate, and I agree that there's capacity concern. So I would be interested just for awareness and understanding of
Yep.
other development, but I don't want to get into specifics of kind of where I heard you going about how we would consider it compared to others, et cetera. I would just leave it there. It's just
Yeah, no, and that's totally fair. And I would agree that I don't think, I'm bringing this to the group right now because we had a request and offer to do that presentation.
Oh, yeah.
And we have some familiarity with the work that's been done, but didn't want to take away previous topics that were a higher priority for the group. And so I wanted to just say, yeah, Commissioner Prieto, and then I'll do a pulse check.
One question as we're talking about kind of like approving TIF in specific areas, and we're talking about the sugar mill and different things like that. Something that I'm thinking about is like, you know, Longmont doesn't have like infinite land, right?
Mhm.
Like eventually we're gonna run out. And to me, it makes sense as a commissioner to like do the infill and fill in versus take up all the land out.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so like, I guess this would be one of those examples that I would even prioritize over the sugar mill. Because that's going way out east. And we're not even hitting that yet. I mean, we're starting to develop a little bit in the First and Main area. We got some development on Martin, where the old metal yard used to be. And hopefully that's gonna really generate and pick up some momentum there. But when we think about it as just as a LURA board, and I don't know historically, like, is there a rule of thumb? Maybe Jen, you can speak to it. Like historically, like does LURA just really focus on the redevelopment infill, or is it typical for LURA to kind of jump around sporadically outside and, you know, kind of like with the sugar mill, or, you know, a space that's not necessarily connected to the city?
I think it's traditional that the tool is used for those areas where there's a gap, and often that gap is created by the you know, site conditions. So you know, the types of things that we're seeing in the sugar mill, where you have you know, lots of remediation work to do, underutilized properties, places that have, you know, don't have access, have lots of calls for service. So that doesn't look like it's everywhere in the community often. So and there are often urban renewal plans that are very specific to a specific project. You see that a lot in the work that Denver's done over time, where the urban renewal plan area is just whatever that block is, or that one parcel that they're redeveloping. And so I guess I would say that it sort of depends. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would say. Is that it's just, which is not helpful, but like it depends, right? And the main tool of urban renewal is blight mitigation, so everything has to go right back to that.
Katie, could you also speak to your experience? We've talked on and off about how urban renewal areas and TIF are used kind of in a broader strategic context with a longer term view. And I think we've, in the last year, we've seen very specific parcel-based proposals. And this is more of a broader step back area conversation. Can you talk about just how you, from your experience, what you have seen in different communities across the Front Range, and how this maybe fits in or doesn't?
Yeah, this bigger plan area is kind of how I would categorize as kind of the before the law changed way of doing it a little bit, which we have to be very careful that we are being current with how we interpret this. And so now we're seeing more like specific. So I've seen, because I kind of came into this right as the law changed, that this would be interesting because there needs to be a project driving it, and so I'm curious about how that would work in this context.
Sure. Sure, but carving out a urban renewal area could generate TIF for improvements in another part of that same area, right?
100%, yes, and so like I've seen it like of that, because an area has been around, it's been collecting increment for 20 years, then you have this money that's able to kind of do these catalytic projects, like buying blocks of land and getting immediate life on that, on those blocks.
Can you just give us a sense of like the scale of that? Like how much did you guys have in the piggy bank there from?
Millions.
Like millions to apply to blight remediation in other parts of that area?
Correct. But that does not exist anymore because you can't do those big swapped land.
So we'd have to so this wouldn't be a whole urban renewal area,
Correct.
but it would carve out a few like pieces of this basically.
Yes, and when you say carve out, can you maybe give me a little bit more?
It would be a sub portion of what we were just talking about this.
So I think we have these two examples that we have actually in our city. So we have the Southeast Longmont Urban Renewal Plan area where we then did a small area for the Second and Martin project. And that is with the idea that we would be able to do other sub kind of areas that would, all of those dollars would feed into the sugar mill. It's kind of the old methodology of thinking, and where we have we also have this Southeast Urban Renewal Plan area where now we're taking out some of those areas that were in the SLURP, and are becoming its own urban renewal plan. So the first and main urban renewal plan area, with the addition of those two IDA parcels, is being carved out from the old plan because it's trying to conform with the new law. So we have these kind of, we have two examples in our community of how that happens. I think the methodology moving forward and the recommendation that we have is to do plan areas that are specific for the project versus like doing a whole big project area.
And I know when we start these TIF blocks, a 25-year runway feels like a long time, but the reality of it is that 25 years is not that long to collect that increment. So something to be mindful of.
Thank you. So let me do a quick pulse check and then I'll chat with staff, but who's interested in a presentation, not a request, but like a presentation on the broader area-wide planning effort and some of the redevelopment thoughts? So quick just show of hands, like who's interested in the presentation on that? Okay, I'm seeing about 6 or 7. And just for context, the area-wide plan itself is about 109 pages, in case that just gives you a sense of what you might be reading alternatively. And then who's just interested in receiving an informational item in your packet in a future meeting just with that area-wide plan to get a sense more for what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And these are not inherently mutually exclusive. Okay, so, okay, thank you. I'm seeing a slight preference towards the presentation. We'll definitely get maybe we'll get the area-wide plan sent out in a meeting prior to or something and then re-included we'll look and see how heavy or light the agendas are.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the good questions on this. I know this is an area that this group certainly hasn't discussed, at least not in the last couple of years that I've been involved. It doesn't sound like for 3 or 4 years before that.
Can I ask what group was it that you guys were talking about that you're working with?
This was the Brownfield Advisory Committee that was formed as part of CDPHE's effort in partnership with Longmont to have a bunch of different stakeholders and different representations.
Were there any minutes on the meeting or posted?
Probably.
There has to be, yeah. This has
We
been.
can certainly ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, probably. And all the members of the group are in the report for reference too. So that was the group that was doing that in partnership with CDPHE using EPA Brownfields funding. There was a consulting team that was leading that effort. Great. Thank you for that input. Thank you staff. We'll talk about kind of when to sequence that in and so we don't overwhelm anyone. Appreciate that.
Looking back, any finance report for today?
I don't have anything for you this evening.
No problem. Thank you, Teresa. We're now at item 9, comments from commissioners, if any. I don't have any other announcements. We already talked about the special meeting. Are there any comments from any commissioners? Seeing a robust chorus of none. Are there any updates from staff on any recent projects that we haven't talked about today?
No.
Nope. Okay.
Move we adjourn.
Seeing none, I hear a motion to adjourn from
Second.
Commissioner McCoy and a very enthusiastic second from Commissioner Hidalgo-Farring. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We adjourn at 6:58 PM, not even close to 7.